The other thing that was buzzing, did you get a chance to take a look at the Hall of Fame inductees?
See, me and you, we like same page. Bro.
Yeah, yeah,
Same page.
yeah.
I just happened to pull up a article. This is in a blog called Baseball Maven.
Uh-huh.
Second largest Hall of Fame crowd in history welcomes 5 inductees.
Okay.
All right. So obviously, I have a little bit of a bias, and I am going to spend a couple of minutes
Yeah.
paying homage
Okay.
to the great Mariano Rivera.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but let me just run through, just giving the respect to the full class first.
Okay.
All right, so 5 of the newest, the 5 newest members of the Hall of Fame featured the largest gathering in of Hall of Famers in history. All right, so 53 returning Hall of Famers were on hand for the induction of Harold Baines, Roy Halladay, Edgar Martinez, Mike Mussina, Mariano Rivera, and Lee Smith. All right, so as someone who grew up with baseball in the 90s, seeing this class kind of gives me a little warm, fuzzy feeling because I pretty much remember the full career of every player in this class. Lee Smith, first of all, to me has been a very overlooked player. Lee Smith has fallen into the crack because he was a relief pitcher. And up until just the last couple of years with Trevor Hoffman getting in, and obviously now with Mariano Rivera getting in, I'm starting to think that the voters are looking at the relief pitchers now and kind of giving them the credit that they deserve. And the reason why I think that relief pitchers need to be looked at a little bit more closely and just given some more respect is because they play every day, right? And when I say play every day, I don't mean necessarily that they're going to play all 6 games in a given week, but very likely they're going to show up for 4 of those games, especially if you have the lead, your closer, and it's a save situation. That closer is going to see a lot of time. So Lee Smith pitched 18 years in the big leagues. And in those 18 years, he appeared in 1,022 games. All right? And he had 478 saves, 1,300 innings, and just under 1,300 strikeouts with a whip of 1.25 and a career ERA of 3.03, right? So just incredible numbers all the way through for Smith. 8.7 strikeouts per 9 over his full career. He dominated with the Cubs to start his career, then with the Red Sox for a few years. I remember him prominently with the Cardinals. Had just a short stint at the end of his career with the Yankees, the Orioles, the Angels, the Reds, and then the Expos to finish it. But in his prime, Lee Smith undoubtedly was the best closer for most of the prime years of his career, and if not the best, easily in the top 3 to 5 during that time. So very happy to see Lee Smith get in. Roy Halladay,
The late Roy Halladay.
the late Roy Halladay is actually a special story. He was getting in regardless.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happened that his untimely passing occurred via airplane crash shortly before he was elected to go in. So I saw that his wife gave a speech on his behalf. So, he is definitely a huge part of why this crowd was what it was, because he spent the majority of his career with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
And they just travel. You know how Canada is.
Yeah.
That's all they have are their couple of teams, and then the whole nation supports the team.
Yeah.
So that's a big reason for why everybody would show up for Roy Halladay. And then the second team that he's most prominently known for is his short few years with the Philadelphia Phillies. And Phillies fan has definitely taken to Roy Halladay as one of their own. So that's two great fan bases. The next guy, Edgar Martinez, and so I was thinking about mentioning these two guys together, but to give them their due, I'm not going to mention them together. But Edgar Martinez, as a designated hitter, changed the game in terms of how people look at a designated hitter. I saw an interview with Edgar Martinez as to how he felt when they moved him to designated hitter. He felt that he was a very good defensive player, and he did not want to be a designated hitter.
Uh-huh.
He was a third baseman, and then he got to the point where he realized that the best thing for the team was to let someone else who was better at third base than he was play third base, and he be the designated hitter. So he was part of phenomenal teams that included Ken Griffey Jr., Alex Rodriguez, and many others that had the Mariners. I definitely should mention Ichiro as part of that core that had the Mariners competing for a championship for a few years, including a record-setting 116 wins in one of those seasons, all with Edgar as the linchpin in the middle of that lineup. All right, the other guys, Harold Baines, a long career as a designated hitter and first baseman, mostly designated hitter with the Chicago White Sox, and a little bit of time with the Orioles, I believe. Mike Mussina, who spent most of his career with the Baltimore Orioles in the very tough American League East, when the Yankees and Red Sox were fighting and had really great teams. Mike Mussina kept the Orioles afloat. He then, as a free agent, signed with the Yankees and finished his career with the Yankees, winning a championship in 2009. So, of course, he had a huge impact on both the Yankees and the Orioles. And then, of course, there's Mariano Rivera.
Closer.
Perfect.
Yeah, left him for last. That was cool.
Perfect. Mariano is probably my favorite Yankee of all time. And when you look at his career, when the Yankees found Mariano Rivera, he was a outfielder. He was a position player.
Mm-hmm.
They saw him and felt like he could be a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
He moved up through their system as a starting pitcher, okay? And he wasn't a dominant starting pitcher with like flamethrower stuff, the type of guy that you see. You're like, oh, wow, yeah, him. He wasn't that guy. But he just had a level of consistency moving up to their system, and he was able to get to the majors at the age of 25, and he was signed at 20 years old. So in just 5 years, he was able to get through the Yankee system and into the major leagues as a starting pitcher.
Huh. Okay.
Apparently one day, and this is how the story goes, this is how he tells the story. He's playing around. And again, remember, he did not have dominant stuff, right? Even to matriculate to the point where you got to the majors without having that overwhelming stuff, those overwhelming eye-popping type of velocity and movement on your ball. None of that. He got to the majors as a starting pitcher, fledgling, back and forth, to the minors and back a couple of times. One day he's playing catch with one of his teammates, and he does something with his grip, and the ball just starts moving. And immediately his teammate is like, wow, what was that? Can you do it again? And he just starts doing it. The most amazing fact about Mariano's career is he dominated baseball all the way until he retired. He retired dominant with one pitch. Right? So you understand, and obviously you might understand. So let's just make this clear about a hitter's mentality, especially in this high level, especially the highest level of the high level where the Yankees play, which is in the playoffs against great teams, against great hitters, in the American League East against great hitters day after day, day after day, day after day. A hitter can hit any pitch. If you throw 100 miles an hour, they're going to hit that, right? You have to offset 100 miles an hour with something else.
Okay.
Because if they know that you're going to throw 100 miles an hour, they're going to hit 100 miles an hour, right? And the faster you throw, the farther the ball travels.
Okay.
Right? So you have to offset it with something else. It is not viable for you to be a good pitcher if the batter knows what you're throwing. Doesn't work. Can't be done. Except for this guy who did this with one pitch. So there wasn't any guess as to whether this is going to be a fastball, is it going to be a curveball, is it going to be a slider? Nothing. And when you hear the hitters talk about him, they even knew the location. Cutter outside, cutter inside. They knew the pitch and they knew where it was going to go. He rode that for 15 years. All right? To be regarded as the greatest relief pitcher in the history of baseball with one pitch that everybody knows when it's coming and where it's going. And no one at the highest level of Major League Baseball could do anything with it. Right? So for his career, 19 years in the big leagues, debuted at age 25, retired at age 43, 82 and 60. The all-time record, 652 saves. The all-time record, 952 games finished. So this is going to go to one of your favorite points, right? If you're not good enough, you're not going to be in the game.
Right.
He finished 952 games, which is the most of anyone all time. So that means you're not getting pulled out when you go in. You know what I mean? You're finishing the job to the point where no one has ever been this efficient at finishing ever. You know what I mean? A career ERA 2.21. All right? And then when you go look at his postseason numbers, which is to me what makes him a first ballot, hands down, unanimous Hall of Famer. This is what makes him different, especially when you look at the 5 World Series titles. 4 of those titles, he pitched the clinching pitch.
Okay.
So again, just another little detail, something that you could overlook, but is a huge component of what makes Mariano Rivera so great. All right, so 32 playoff series, 16 years he appeared in the playoffs, and of course you have to be a Yankee to be able to do that. He had a 0.70 ERA in those playoff appearances. 141 innings of playoff pitching for Mariano Rivera, a 0.70 ERA. All right, and 42 saves, right? So I'm not sure how many save opportunities. I know he blew a few. Everyone has to. But, 42 saves, 0.75 whip. All right, and for those of you that don't know exactly what whip is, it is simply walks plus hits per innings pitched. Right, the average whip for a good pitcher, 1.2, 1.3. That means you're getting one guy on base per inning, but you're getting out of that jam before someone scores. Typically, if your whip is below that 1.3, right? Bad pitchers are going to be 1.5 and up. He is below 1. So again, at the highest level of competition in the playoffs, everybody knows the pitch you're throwing. Everybody knows where it's going. Mm-hmm. And they could not even get on base. The most frustrating thing to me about Mariano Rivera is when he came in the game, there was nothing for you to see here. Mm-hmm. It was 7, 8 pitches, game over. Without the strikeouts. So you're actually making contact. And he's known for shattering bats. So, again, one pitch, incredible career all the way through. Everybody knew what was coming and couldn't do it and couldn't touch it. And as he goes into the Hall of Fame as the first unanimous Hall of Famer in baseball history, I just want to point out to fans the level of dominance and efficiency that Mariano Rivera displayed throughout his entire career. We were talking last week in the chat about naming the top 5 players from particular baseball franchises. Mm-hmm. In the Yankees world, for you to elevate into that top 5 in this day and age is unexpected, to say the least. Because you're talking about Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, Yogi Berra, Reggie Jackson, Roger Maris. The names go on and on and on and on. Mariano Rivera deserves to be in that very top among the Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio list. You know what I mean? So I just want to make sure that fans do not just take it for granted what we were able to see in Mariano Rivera, because it's likely not going to happen again. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Someone this ridiculously efficient for this long in his career. So I'm happy to see it. I'm very lucky to be able to have seen his entire career, and just as a Yankee fan and as a Mariano fan, just very, very excited and thrilled, to say the least, to see this happen, especially the way that it did, as the first unanimous guy. All right, that is my my Mariano Rivera spiel.
Okay.
All right, so it's probably not going to happen again because he's not going into the Hall of Fame again. This was it for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We got to see his record-breaking save. We got to see his last game and all the pageantry that went around that. We got to see him be the last number 42 in baseball history, right? And that's another little coincidence with the number 42 with the Robinson family and how they kind of adopted Mariano as the perfect ambassador to wear that number into the retirement, to be the last person to wear that 42 and to have it retired. They retired it when he was still playing. Obviously, all of baseball retired it. The retirement ceremony for the Yankees retiring that number was while he was still playing. So, just consider myself very, very lucky to have seen that. And, as fans, sometimes we take a lot of this stuff for granted and we don't understand what we're seeing while we're seeing it. But we got to be a little bit more alert when we're seeing these acts of history take place right in front of us.